This is Hospitality One-to-One, conversations on the industry. Here's your host, Chris Bennis.
Well, joining us today here on the Hospitality One-to-One podcast, this is actually going to be a first for us. We have an in-studio guest. They actually let us bring someone in and talk to them. I've got Bob Pacanovsky. Bob, you are obviously, those who are watching realize that either Bob is very overdressed or I'm very underdressed for the podcast, but it's actually on purpose. This is part of Bob's brand. Bob actually is a keynote speaker. He's at corporate events, as well as he's the black tie experience speaker. He talks about customer service. Bob, thanks so much for being here today. I appreciate it.
Chris, my pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for bringing me into the studio.
Glad to do it.
Awesome.
Glad to do it. So, obviously I want to get into your background. I want to talk more about you, about what you've done. But of course, whether you're remote or you're in-house, we have to treat you to the Hive, if you will.
I'm looking forward to it. That's
great. For those who don't know what the Hive is very simply, it's a chance to get to know more about Bob. Some quick unscripted answers. And you'll have 1 minute to do it. Now, normally I would just kind of guess at the time. I'm actually going to use my phone here. We're going to set the timer for 1 minute. And when we get ready to go, Bob will be able to answer a little more about himself. So, are you ready to step into the Hive?
I am. Let's go.
All right, here we go. Question 1. What was your first job?
Worked at my uncle's pizza store in Parma Heights.
What is your favorite restaurant?
Ooh, boy. I don't know if I have a favorite, but I still love pizza. I love deep dish pizza. So.
And first car?
First car was a Ford LTD2 black.
Ford LTD2. Coke or Pepsi?
Not much of a soft drink. I like Coke, although my wife likes Pepsi.
Dog or cat?
Dog.
PC or Mac?
PC.
How about call or text?
I'm an old-fashioned guy. I love to pick up the phone and talk to people.
If you could live anywhere other than Akron, Ohio, where would that be?
Summertime, Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Wintertime, Maui.
Wow. And last one, favorite hotel?
Don't have, they're all, there's some good ones out there. So I can't pick one in particular. So I'm sorry.
That's okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we're at minute 8, so we went a little over, but not a problem at all. Great questions, great answers there. Again, getting to know more about Bob, but of course, I like Coke as well when I do drink it. Unfortunately, I drink a little more than I probably should. But we'll talk later about that.
Right.
So before we kind of talk more about what you're doing now,
right?
I kind of wanted to step back, if we will, and give people a chance to know more about who you are,
sure,
Bob. So kind of tell me your story. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, you know what, Chris, so I have been in the hospitality industry for over 22 years now. Opened up my first restaurant in 1994. It was just a small neighborhood Italian restaurant, and it worked so well that in our infinite wisdom or lack thereof, we decided to open a second one. Not just open it, mind you, but build it from the ground up. Which was a very wonderful and difficult learning experience. Learn a lot of lessons the hard way. Learned that you have to be more financed and have more of a marketing budget. And unfortunately, it didn't work. It only lasted about a year. But because of that, I started doing some catering out of that. And when I bought my first restaurant back from my partners, started doing some catering. Didn't really know a ton about it now. I should say that I have a finance degree. Okay. But worked in the family business, as I mentioned. I got my start working for one of my uncles at his pizza store here in Parma Heights, and learned the business. Really never thought of it. So started this catering thing. I started to like it, and then I answered an ad here in Akron for, at the time, it was the Inventors Hall of Fame. They were looking for preferred caterers. I didn't even know what a preferred caterer was, but I had a chef at the time, and he and I answered the bid, and lo and behold, we got it. Became one of the caterers. And so I thought this whole thing about unique venues was interesting, and so I started doing more research, and lo and behold, I started building up our list of unique venues, and our first major one after the Hall of Fame was right here in Akron. It was the home of the Cyber Lane Stan Hewitt Hall.
Okay.
And became a caterer there. And that really took us off because of Stan Hewitt. We then became caterer at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Farm and Village. Went up to some museums up in Cleveland, Akron Art Museum. And so that's where we got our start. Then from there, we just started building the business, and we started adding event services and became this full service event and catering company. But all along, what was crucial to me was training our staff customer service wise, because think about it, we had some really major venues in Northeast Ohio, working with people that were on my staff were part-time as needed people. So I really needed to get that customer service culture down pat. So I actually developed a 7-hour comprehensive training program that before anybody could walk on any floor that we had or working with, they had to go through this training program that first and foremost talked about what our culture was, how important it was, then what we called how our way of doing things, really how to treat the customer, our commandments, so to speak, and really how to look and act and so forth. Then they got the task-oriented aspects of our job done. And it was successful. We grew, we became a more bigger player. In fact, our claim to fame, while at the Hall of Fame, we were able to cater 25 of the Pro Football Hall of Fame induction parties over a 5-year period.
Wow.
And it was just an awesome opportunity. And I can't just stress enough the great team we had, because these people were phenomenal. What we do in hospitality is hard work. Mm-hmm. It's just, you're constantly moving, and you really only have that one opportunity to make both a lasting impression and a wow experience. And here we're on one of the biggest stages with the owners and the players and you name it, and our staff hit it out of the park each and every time. And we got called back by some of the teams because they got players in 1 or 2 years later, and that was our greatest testament, because they called us and said, Bob, we need your team back. So was doing very well, but I started doing some more training and really enjoyed it. Was doing more of because people were going through my training course and saying, Bob, my full-time company doesn't even have anything like this. How can you help us? I never thought of it. To be honest with you, this is what I love to do. And then started doing some other training on business etiquette. I tell people that after working on 7,000 meetings, events, galas, receptions, you got to see the good, the bad, and the ugly in people, how they act, behave, speak. So started adding that, and one thing led to another, and I looked at it and I said, what will my business look like if I could sell this? And it was a very difficult decision because our staff was so great. But but at the end of 2014, was able to, sell the company. And in 2015, started doing this full time, speaking and training. And in 2016, changed the brand to the Black Tie Experience. And here we are.
So to put in perspective, I wanted to walk back, if we could, the catering, because for those who may not necessarily have an appreciation for the scope of what you do when it came to the catering side of things, give me an idea. What were we talking about, numbers of people you were catering to at a time?
Yeah. Well, okay. So just in 2009 at the Hall of Fame parties. So we did 5 parties simultaneously on the grounds of the Hall of Fame, served 1,900 people at the same time. 5 different menus, 5 different themes, 5 different staffs. Now, we had to bring everything. That's, so what we did basically at these venues is, we did off-site work. Mm-hmm. So what I would tell my staff is that we never played a home game. Everything we had to do was on the road. So that had to make sure that our systems were very detailed. People had to understand what it meant to work on the road with us. Yeah. But it worked.
So you started off because you wanted to make sure that your employees differentiated themselves when it comes to customer service. So you created this 7-hour training course internally.
Correct.
Kind of give me an idea what, and you've talked about it a little bit, but really what was the driver? Because you had a successful catering business. By all accounts, you could have stayed catering, and obviously working with the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Inventors Hall of Fame, what have you, you could have easily just rolled in the dough per se when it comes to doing that. What was there a particular moment that you realized this was more important right now, I need to do this?
I don't know if there was that aha moment, but I think, Chris, what it was for me was that I saw that I was really, as much as I enjoyed what I was doing, and I did, the people were wonderful, the clients were great, I had this energy that I never knew I had when I got in front of people and started working with them and started helping them solve some of their challenges when it came to customer service. And it was interesting. My wife at the time was our office manager, and I would come back from a training, and I wouldn't have talked to her before that. And so I walked in the office, and she said, or she would look at me, and she said, "So it went really well, didn't it?" And I said, "Well, yes. How do you know?" She said, "Because of your beaming. You just have so much energy right now." I said, "Wow." And so I just looked at that, and I said, if I could use what I have and help other companies, it's something that I wanted to do.
So let's talk first of all, before we go into what the training is, okay? With your experience working across the board, what do you feel is the biggest, I guess, area lacking when it comes to customer service across the board? If we looked at all the industries,
right?
If we could paint it with a broad brush, what's that one thing that you think is really lacking?
I think the training, in terms of training a mindset on how not to deliver just what you're supposed to do, which is what I call customer service, but really going above and beyond, of really making people feel differently about your product or service. I think, Chris, we live now in what I call just a good enough society. The customer service is just good enough, and unfortunately, we as consumers, we take it. Like, well, that's what it is. Well, I think that if we can really engage our employees on how to show them, just by going above and beyond, doing those couple extra things, how they can feel and how their customers can feel about their company, their product, their service. So I think it goes back down to training. And you've heard this before, and in this industry, especially in, as we paint the broad scope of hospitality, one of the biggest challenges that I really come across is, Bob, you know what? Yeah, but our people are leaving. I can't keep people. So I don't want to make that investment in training. Well, I think that's a double-edged sword. You're going to have to make that investment in order to keep people.
Yeah. Well, and you brought up a point, because I guess when it comes to customer service and the people side of things, there's always this adage too, and not to sound old fogey about the whole thing, but the idea of they don't make it like they used to. Whenever you see the period pieces in the 50s and the 60s, you think of the Woolworths, you think of the candy store counter, you think of the high level of customer service. And this goes across all industries.
Correct.
Do you think, in your experience, that persona, that they provided a better customer service experience for a guest back, or for a customer back in the 40s, 50s, 60s? Do you think, in fact, customer service has, I guess, gotten worse as we've gotten more digital, as we've gotten more modern and more current?
Yes, great question. And what I talk about is we are now more connected than ever because of technology. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think we're just as disconnected. I think that we're missing that personal touch. So yes, I would agree with you to a certain extent that I think at times we're relying too much on our new technology when it comes down to the point of this these businesses are still all about people. And we've got to get back to that personal connection of really touching those people. And I mean, I know it's easier to do that with technology, but at the same time, I think it just is brings us maybe even further apart versus just picking up the phone. I do text, and yes, it's easier at times, but I'll tell you that if I'm talking with someone via text and I know they're there because they're texting me, at a certain point, I'm going to pick up the phone and say, okay, let's just finish this right now. Oh, hey, Bob, thanks for calling. So I think we've got to get back to it.
I think to your point, yeah, it's funny. Those who are married will appreciate this. Texting can get you in trouble because you don't know the intent behind. There's two letters. Okay. Now, is it okay or okay or okay? You don't know that on via text.
Right.
And you're leaving it up to that other person to read the text and to have the same mindset you have. If they don't, case in point, many husbands out there probably have found themselves in a little bit of the doghouse over those comments just because of the fact that they don't know how it's going to respond. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah. No, it is.
So let's talk about this a little bit too. I mean, so when, you've been a student of customer service for quite some time now.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about what types of services do you offer as part of the black tie experience?
Right. So there's three tenets for me that fall under the black tie experience. It's the black tie customer experience, the black tie, the second one is the black tie leadership experience, and then the black tie workplace behavior experience, etiquette experience. I don't like to use the word etiquette because it freaks people out. Because they think of, you have to have the pinky out when you're, but really the main wheelhouse is that customer experience, because I think it all falls underneath that leadership, how you act, behave. So I have an acronym that I use in all of my seminars, and it's based on the word LASTS, LASTS. Because, Chris, we talk about service. We have to do customer service. We have to do this. Well, I firmly believe that you can't really serve your customer unless you know how to look the part, act the part, speak the part, what your tact is, or how you behave the part. Then finally you can serve the part. So it's look, act, speak, tact, and then serve. So when we talk about customer service, at times we hire bodies. I mean, all industries, we hire bodies because we heard that you like people in your interview. Okay, I need a body for this weekend because I have, because the hotel's completely booked or the restaurant's completely booked or whatever it is. Well, the challenge is that we're not training these people, so unless they don't know how to look the part or act the part or speak the part, they're never going to be able to serve the part. So I really talk about that, and then based on that, I have what's called 4 principles on how to deliver the black tie customer experience. And these are principles that I put together in my business. So they've been tried and tested, they've been proven, and they kind of all build on each other. Because, see, my goal, in our hospitality industry, we get a lot of what I call one and dones.
Okay.
They come in to stay overnight, never see them again, or they come into your restaurant, or they go to your event, well, my goal was always to try to get as many people moving from one and done, or maybe satisfied customers, to those loyal and raving fans.
Right.
And we would have clients who would literally just do this. They would pick up the phone and say, Bob, here's our next event. It's coming up on such and such date. Here's my budget. Do what you have to do. I trust you completely. I know what you're going to do for me. That's a loyal and raving fan.
Right.
Okay? So those 4 principles, real quick. The first one is create a culture of welcome for not only your employees, first and foremost, but your customers. So that culture is your foundation. The second one is what I call the way of doing things. So what are your commandments that you're going to train your people on? on, because all the companies have a way of doing things.
Right.
But here's what I do, is now as a manager, it's not your way, Chris, it's not my way. It's the blank company way. It's the Disney way. It's, the Nike way, whatever it is. Now it becomes, that's the key. So now we're training people on how to deliver this experience. The company way. It's not robotic, it's very personalized, conversational way to do it. But we go through with our clients to say, okay, so let's brainstorm. What are the oh gosh, Bob, we haven't really thought about it before. Well, okay, but how do you speak to customers? That's a good question. Well, let's write it down. People have to know that. So that's the second. The third way is what I call, or always watching your impact points.
Mm-hmm.
Impact points are those subconscious points that all of us see subconsciously, not only company branded impact points, but behavior based impact points, which are people. So I actually walk people through their own business. Say, okay, if I'm a customer for the first time, what's your parking lot look like? What's your lobby look like? What's your front desk look like? What's your restrooms look like? We all know when you, as a consumer, you walk into a restaurant, but then, what do your people look like? How do they look, act, speak, so forth. So those three things all build up to then the fourth principle is really trying to transform those customers from satisfied to loyal.
Okay.
And so then we have a process. Okay, here are 6 ways to do that. So it's a full team approach. So at the end of it, hopefully you'll have this playbook on how to do things.
So, when it sounds like you can be both a consultation, as in we'll work one-on-one with your company to help improve the customer service or leadership experience there, but you also will go and speak at events as well.
Exactly.
And what kind of an environment is that? When you go to speak, what types of groups are you typically speaking to? What's your ideal audience?
So it really runs the gamut. So like for example, Friday I'm going up to speak, and I'll be an opening keynote for a conference of chamber executives. So I'm doing that. I'm going to be the closing keynote at a conference in downtown Cleveland this summer for a state association. I'm actually going out to Las Vegas in June, and I'm going to be one of the breakout speakers at a national conference. So it's from healthcare, hospitality, business to business, nonprofit. My goal is to get this message out because customer service is for everybody. And here's one of the questions I ask a lot, Chris, and that's why. And we use the word hospitality in this industry, but if you think about it, so I ask people all the time. I ask for a show of hands. How many people believe that they're in the hospitality business? And when I speak at conferences or associations that aren't involved in the hospitality business, people don't know what to do. They don't raise their hand. But then I show them a definition of hospitality, which is the art of making that personal connection with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, based on that definition, aren't we all first and foremost in the hospitality business? So we have to change the mindset of all of our industries that I understand what business you're in, but first and foremost, you're in the hospitality business. You have to make that personal connection. Otherwise, it's never going to work.
You have a matter of mere seconds for that person walking in the door, no matter what business you're part of, to make that impression. Right or wrong, people are going to make a determination on you personally and your business within the first couple of seconds of actually walking into your business. Or, and to your point, if the parking lot is not in good shape, or the signage is not right, or the grass is not cut, any one of those things, they're already going to make a conclusion about your company, right or wrong. They're drawing that thought process, if you will.
Correct. And you said some keywords, right or wrong. You still may have a great product, and yes, your product or service may be able to get you through it. However, it's always in the back of your mind, like, oh man, I wonder, gosh, I really don't keep the place neat. I wonder what my product's going to look like. And so that's why they could be a one and done customer for you. I mean, we can survive on one and done customers, but it's a lot of work, Chris, to get one and done customers. Why not create these loyal and raving fans who then become your brand ambassadors, who can't wait to tell your story? That's how you grow your business.
I mean, as with any industry, hotels included, business development is your lifeblood.
Yes.
And while of course a hotel or any auto repair company or any particular restaurant, doesn't matter what it is, any industry is going to require business development to increase its customer base. What you're saying here is, rather than having to constantly pick up the phone and try to find new customers, by utilizing your old customers, they actually, by word of mouth, will help you bring in new customers without you having to work real hard at finding them.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. And that's what I help do. That's how we built our business. Is while we still had a market, we actually, with these loyal and raving fans, we were actually to get or be able to get more business from referrals, saying, hey, you know what, so and so just told me that you or that I need to call you. You guys are the people, and I'm not just talking on the catering, full service events. So we were working, and it got to the stage where we weren't even, there were times where we were going into hotels as the event company. We weren't doing the catering. They hired us to do the event because they knew our attention to detail and that we weren't going to miss anything. And so I'm just trying to say, hey, it worked for this small company in Akron, Ohio.
It can work for you.
It can work for you.
So before we wrap up, a couple more points. If you're a hotel, a restaurant, a country club, because obviously, while this podcast can apply to everyone, because our main focus, our main people are going to be the hospitality industry, if you will. So if you're one of those venues and you feel as though either your GSS scores might be lower than they should be, or frankly, you've looked at TripAdvisor and it's looking a little on the rough side, or you just want to set yourself apart from the other restaurants, country clubs, or hotels in your comp set, what's the first area you have, or first or couple areas you should look initially, not knowing anything about that particular company?
Right.
What's the first thing they should do?
Chris, I think goes back, they have to look at their people. The people that are working for them, are they the right fit? Because they can also be, and in fact, they absolutely have to be your brand ambassadors for you. So looking at your people, number one, and then looking at your training programs. How involved are you with training? See, Chris, we talk about training, but typically some companies just show people how to deliver customer service. It doesn't work. We have to involve people. We have to really get them into the meat of the program and understand how important it is on whatever principles you have in your company. And that means making an investment in time and money and people. But those two things, first and foremost, because culture is contagious, both great culture and negative culture. I was just working with a client in healthcare, and we could see that there were some challenges, and it was starting to affect the staff.
Okay.
So I worked with the management, and I said, here are my steps on what you need to do. Well, 1 week later, one of the two people left the company. And Chris, I kid you not, almost overnight, the culture changed back to the positive culture. That's how powerful this is with people. So look at your people. Make sure they're the right fit.
Look at your people. Well, obviously, every company is different.
Yes.
Every organization has its pluses and minuses, and has a need. If there's someone who's watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast, if they're saying, hey, I really think I could utilize Bob's services, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, so it's my name, which I know is not that easy to spell, but I have my own website. It's bobpacanovsky.com. It's PACANOVSKY. And my email address is the same. It's bobpacanovsky.com. My phone number is here in Akron, Ohio, but I travel all over. It's 330-352-6084.
Well, that's great. What we'll do, again, those of you who perhaps are listening in the car, don't have access to a pen and paper and a pen, don't worry. We're going to put a link to all Bob's contact information up on our website, which is yourhotelrecruiter.com. Bob, great conversation. Love talking to you in person.
Thank you. Yeah, this is great.
You know?
Well, and Chris, so that those of you that can see it in person, I have a little black tie gift for you. So this is just, I always want to, and I think you are actually doing this, but I want you to always be delivering the black tie experience. Going above and beyond to make people, and there's a little even something in there inside for you.
Bob is speaking my language of my people, which is food. So, Bob, again, Snickers bar. Oh, again, this is fantastic. Great cup. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Bob.
Chris,
I
for the time.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it, sir.
It was great talking to you. Have a great day.
Thank you, too.